All right. Wes, how are you? You're early on today. Wes?
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great. Yeah, I've only got like 35, 40 minutes today.
Okay, great. Um, ChatGPT, I showed you the grading. ChatGPT graded you A plus from yesterday's episode. That was amazing. How are you feeling after yesterday's episode?
Pretty good.
Good. Um, we talked yesterday. We talked about the Tesla's unique edge in manufacturing expertise for Optimus. Um, Omar, welcome. How are you?
Hey, doing good.
Good. Today the stock is opened up a little higher and then came back down to pretty much 0%. We're going to continue with our discussion with Luce later on, but let's talk some FSD. We didn't get a chance to talk FSD yesterday. Omar, any news around V13?
So V13 has started testing with a select group of employees. It hasn't gone out to the wave one yet, which includes all Tesla employees, including, service center employees, showroom employees. So the next step we're really looking for is for it to expand to a small internal group of testers, executives, people like that, ADAS testers to really the wave one fleet. And we might see another build there. Although, we don't have a lot of transparency into what the build numbers are since it's just internal. But once it goes out to wave one, then probably within 24 to 48 hours of that, you would see it go out to early access customers. If they want to keep their schedule of going wide around Thanksgiving, then we probably need to see it either this weekend or next weekend. And meanwhile, end to end on the highways has been rolling out to people.
So the majority of the fleet now has end-to-end on highways. Can you elaborate on any improvements? What specifically makes it a game changer for long drives?
Yeah, I don't know if the majority of the fleet has it yet. Maybe About Tesla or someone could give us an update, but it is starting to go out to more people. Um, you know, the same sort of improvement we saw on city streets with end to end, you're seeing on the highway now too. Just far less robotic, far more natural driving that handles things the way they're supposed to be handled. For me, one of the big reasons I always had to disengage the old autopilot, even the old FSD stack, is the car would just get stuck behind some really slow car, right? And, it's not doing anything wrong. It's driving perfectly safe, but I don't want to be stuck behind this slow car. So I take over, I go around them, then I turn FSD back on. Or sometimes, the gap is kind of narrow. Maybe there's the slow guy, but then there's also a truck on the right side. So you need to actually go around, speed up really quickly, get around the guy before the truck on this 2-lane highway and then pull in front of him. And the old autopilot could never do that. The new end-to-end highway stack does things like that. It, goes in between gaps. I had a situation where there were two trucks and one was in the left lane, one was in the right lane. It passed that slow truck, got in between a narrow gap in between the two trucks with its new lane changing ability. Um, there's a highway exit that is very sharp that the old stack could never handle. Even, with the new FSD old stack, it's the 152 when you're on I-5 North going to Silicon Valley, going to San Jose, you take 152 and it's a very kind of sharp round interchange there. You kind of have to go down from 80 to like 25 and take this curved highway exit ramp, and the old stack would always miss this highway exit ramp, but the new stack was able to handle it like a champ. So a lot of people's highway issues, I think, are going to be solved by end to end. There may be a few new issues that pop up from this migration to end, but I think it's pretty clear. And I just am today editing a 4-hour drive I recorded with end to end on the highway, zero intervention from San Francisco to Kettleman City. And I think it's pretty clear that we're setting ourselves up for a coast to coast drive here. Um, this thing can now have a zero intervention drive that's longer than the battery length of the car. And that's not
Yeah.
uncommon.
Okay, great. We have a reply from Seth Hart in replies. He says, finally, he got 12.6.3. He drives 500 miles a day on Uber. This is just as big as the city stack end to end. My God, Christmas came early. If Seth can please come up to the speaker board, I sent him an invite to speak. Maybe we can discuss his takeaways. And then I also want to take a moment to just chat with Wes before he has to leave in about 20 minutes. Omar?
Yeah, I also have to leave. We have delivery day of a new car, but I'll just say really quickly, this is, I think, material to FSD adoption because there is a near 100%, let's say more than 90% penetration of autopilot on highways. Every Tesla user uses autopilot on the highways because it's free on the car. Now, with end to end on the highway, you have a version of FSD on the highway that is not only dramatically better in terms of its capability, in terms of its driving comfort, but also has no nag. So I think that's an extremely compelling subscription, at least when you're on a road trip. And they're going to be delighted to find as it gets off the highway, it can handle the city streets too. Tesla really has the road trip self driving market entirely to themselves.
Great. Thanks, Omar. Before I go to Seth, Wes, do you think so? Omar has been saying that he expects gross margin for Tesla Automotive to rise to double from here. So that would be 35%. And Omar believes that this will happen even before FSD unsupervised, as FSD supervised rolls out to international markets, China and Europe, namely. Wes, do you think the challenges here are more technical or regulatory? Do you think if um, the governments in those regions allow FSD today, do you think that Tesla would have a success, immediately roll it out and there would be no issues, or do you think there need to be additional training?
Definitely additional training, and I do think it's regulatory in China. That's kind of the canonical market they need to get into because it's obviously the biggest. And it looks like they're pursuing all of those different regulatory requirements. I'm hearing about them getting closer and closer all the time, mostly from Sawyer, which shout out to Sawyer, it's awesome. So there is definitely training that will need to occur for their specific road types and signs and all of these different deltas that they have. But it's not architecture changes. Like all of the dynamics are still the same. So in that point, I don't think there's a lot of technical challenges. I wouldn't expect reliability to be vastly different. I would expect it to have uniqueness, but I wouldn't expect there to be like large architecture changes that are needed. They have about, I would say, roughly the same order of complexity that the United States has. So that's where I think it lies.
Okay. So let's say, for example, that the EU came back and said, you know what, today we're going to allow FSD. At what point, how long before Tesla can roll it out to, let's say, hundreds of thousands of Tesla owners in Europe?
Yeah, it's a good question because I feel like the EU is slightly more complex because it's these system initiated maneuvers that I don't think they've actually nailed down all of the critical safety, um, if you could call it like regulations around that. So there might need to have differing levels of UI interaction around that to begin with. And there's a set of complexities that I don't think are nailed down. I hope Tesla will be involved in helping to kind of script those out so that there aren't like major challenges and where when the model decides to do something that it has to output some type of UI because that would require possibly architecture changes to the model. So I'm a little bit more hesitant to say that there aren't technical challenges there. I think there might be. So I feel like that rollout might be slower. And I'm looking forward to seeing kind of the language around those regulations when they're available. And I don't think they're available yet. And if somebody else thinks they are or has them, I'd love to see them, but I don't think they're available yet.
Omar, any thoughts on what Wes just said?
Well, the model already works in all of these markets, right? They've been training it. Even the US model has data from Europe, has data from other parts of the world. We know how, for example, the Swiss Transport Administrator posted on LinkedIn about how he received an FSD demo in Germany. And he said it was a zero intervention drive on 1236 with roundabouts and everything, all handled by the software. So I think they've been working on training it to drive around the world for quite some time. I'm sure that there's new issues that are Europe specific and China specific that you may not necessarily know about unless you have people there testing. So there's going to be additional work to make sure it works well in those markets, abides by local rules, all of that stuff. But in terms of the model itself, I mean, you can take the model, you can put it in Europe, you can put it in China. Some Russian hackers even just brought it to Russia, brought it to like Czechoslovakia or Chechnya or something, and they just turned it on and it works, right? That's the power of this sort of pure vision system. So I think people don't realize, they said on one of the earnings call, there's not one line of US specific code in the end-to-end system. We just sort of train it. And then once you train it, it can just drive. It can just look at the road and drive. And there are differences, but the fundamentals are the same. Be on the road, stay in the lane lines, don't hit anything. That's true all around the world. So I think when they said on the roadmap that they're looking at Q1, from a technical perspective, it is actually ready to launch. They probably are going to launch AS ahead of that. From a regulatory perspective, I think China could move in Q1. Europe has already made some of the regulatory changes for the UNECE. I think one of them is taking effect November 30th. And then there's another piece that's also needed, the system initiated maneuvers and the hands-free, which right now is looking like it's going to be kind of a Q4 2025 thing, maybe. So they are actually making progress on the regulatory side. On the technical side, I think they're there. And the model has already been trained to work based on images from around the world.
Can you repeat what you said about Q4 2025? I missed that part.
Some additional pieces in the European regulation, system initiated maneuvers, which allows the system to initiate a lane change decision without the user asking it to, and hands free, no nag, require additional changes beyond what has already gone through. And the best estimate I've heard so far is around Q4 for when that might take effect.
Wow. Okay. So China will probably precede Europe in terms of FSD rollouts. China sometime in 2025 and Europe sometime 2026, sounds like.
It could be. These things do tend to slip a lot. I hope our European friends take a hard look at this and say, look, we need this for competitiveness, we need this for safety, and try and accelerate it. But, knowing how these things move, Q4, I would be happy if it happened by Q4. I'd say, wow, that was easier than I thought.
Okay. All right, everyone. Let's take a moment to say, sorry, Wes, we take a moment to say thank you to our sponsors. In the meantime, please head over to YouTube, hit that like button. We are 5 away from 100 likes. We're almost there. And we're also 7 people away from 3,000 subscribers. So let's hit those milestones right now. If you could please take a moment to head over to YouTube through the link at the top of your screens as I read these audio ads, I would appreciate it. Tesla Live is proudly sponsored by Paymore, your trusted destination for buying, selling, trading, and recycling electronics. I just used Paymore services to get my MacBook Pro that hosts Tesla Live on a daily basis. I sold them my MacBook Air. They gave me cash for it. I applied that cash towards getting this MacBook Pro, and the process was seamless. It only took about 30 minutes to do, which is amazing. And Tesla Live is proudly sponsored by Joa, your go-to source for premium Tesla accessories. Use promo code TSLA Live at checkout to receive a special discount on your next purchase. And hopefully, once we get to 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, I plan to buy a Tesla, and I'm going to be using Joa's products when I do that. All right, Wes, go ahead. Actually, before that, let's check how many likes we're at. 109 likes. Thank you very much, everybody, for taking action. We need 8 more subscribers to get to 3,000. All right, Wes, go ahead.
Yeah, one thing I left out was, which I think is a big obstacle, is ensuring that requirements are met for GDPR and data sovereignty and governance. And those are kind of big deals. You need all new training data localized, needs to stay in country. And then all the learnings from that need to stay in country. So they have to figure out exactly what type of learnings they can extract and kind of anonymize so that the Chinese government will be okay with that. And the same thing with Europe. So these are kind of like really big hurdles that they need to get over to instantiate
Already
the
done.
implementation there.
Yeah, they've already had those discussions with the Chinese government. They received the approval to do it. I think it was what, several months ago now, right? It was big news at the time.
That's great if they're done and it's been signed off.
Yeah, they've got the Chinese data centers open. They reached an agreement with China. It involves blurring people's faces and things like that, client side, which is kind of interesting before they upload the data. But yeah, they've figured out the data security aspect of it for China, which is
Did they
really,
mention,
yeah.
sorry, did they mention they have a training center to train the model?
They
I missed
don't
that if they did.
they don't have a training center within China yet, but you know, primarily due to some of the export restrictions, although people have found ways to get around that. But they are allowed to train on their US data centers using the data with the anonymization applied client side on the car.
So they can train out of country? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the data has to be stored within China, but they can train on it as long as they hide all the personally identifiable information. So the car actually goes in and blurs all the license plates and blurs all the faces. And then they're not allowed to store it in the US, but if they want to train on it, they can train on it, use it to fine tune the models, or maybe even, they do have a team within China too. Um, I think they're probably like, relying on the US to do fine tunes and things like that. But there are cars that are running FSD supervised in China right now. They've been approved to test it in a small area around Gigafactory Shanghai so far. And we have seen like a few screenshots of, you know, people using it, or cars that have the software.
Yeah, that's great. And if that all is working well, then I would think the only thing to then finalize is whatever the most uh, latest kind of regulation that they need to get over. I mean, if you think that they have all of the regulations signed off, because I don't understand what's holding them back then. Those are the key things that I would think they would need to start a release.
It appears to me that Tesla's pretty much ready to go and launch FSD supervised in Europe and China in Q1, provided that they have regulatory approval. So I think all the technical pieces are in row. I don't know necessarily what the performance is going to be if there's any major bugs. But from a technical perspective, I think they're ready to launch in Europe and China in Q1. The big holdup on this for FSD supervised is actually regulatory in those markets. In China, we have similar ADAS solutions on the market, so I don't understand the process, but I expect there is one. In Europe, it's more of a slow process. They're sort of updating some of the ADAS regulations, but that looks to be happening as well. It's happening slowly, but it is actually happening. They are working to finalize these regulations and get them passed. So maybe around 1 year from now, I think we could see FSD enter Europe.
1 year from now, Omar says we could see FSD enter Europe. All right. I see some coffee bets in our future here. Really excited. Coffee really gets me excited. I've been doing some research into what kind of roast has more or less caffeine, what kind of brewing methods, etc. In the meantime, Ant H just gifted 5 memberships to the YouTube channel. And these 5 memberships will be assigned automatically by YouTube to the most active listeners on YouTube. So watch hours, likes, subscribes, shares, live check and engagement, comments below the video, they all help your chances to get a free membership on YouTube, where you can get some early access to exclusive content and some behind the scenes content as well. Omar, about Tesla, then Eli.
It's possible that Tesla could achieve unsupervised FSD before Europe approves FSD supervised. And then we'd be back to the drawing board trying to get unsupervised approved. But you'd have a supervised system that worked so good, it could almost be unsupervised.
About Tesla.
Guys, I only have a few minutes, so I just stopped by to give you a quick update on the rollout.
Thank you.
So FSD version 12.5.6.3, which is the latest widely released version, went pretty much wide overnight. So late last night, early this morning, there was a huge wave that went out. So it's going to about 15% of the US fleet, US and Canada. However, because it's going only to hardware 4 cars, it's actually going to majority of hardware 4 cars in North America. So it is, I don't know if it's all of them or just the majority. It's hard to tell exactly at this point because I don't have the breakdown until it's actually installed.
Yeah. Can you repeat the version number?
So it's version 12.5.6.3, which is software version 2024.33.35.
Okay. 12.5.6.3. This has end-to-end highway, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. End-to-end highway, and also has actually smart summon. So it really works here. The best and the greatest. Now, with 15% of eligible fleet across North America and majority of AI4 vehicles, which means in my book, that's wide. Wes, when do you think this software is going to go to hardware 3 cars, or do you think it will?
Oh, it'll totally go to hardware 3. It just takes some amount of either quantization or optimization, other types of optimization that allow it to run on, reduced compute and memory.
And how long do you think that will take?
It depends where the team's focuses lie, because there's a lot of leverage that they continue to do. They don't have completely separate teams. There might be a quantization team. There might be an optimization or performance, hardware 3 team. Those folks might be, very deep into that embedded code to help, get as much out of that hardware as possible. I know that back in the day that Ashok, he was the guy for any type of optimization on our low-level ICs. So I know he knows that drill, inside and out, backwards and forwards. So I assume that, he's definitely got a really good team that can do that
Okay,
as
very
fast
good.
as humanly possible. However, their focus, their priority, I would assume would. Sure.
Thanks, Wes. You're cutting me off a little bit again today, but just want to say Ethan DeVries is a great supporter of the space, member of the YouTube channel. He also, a great supporter. And he just let me know his code check number 133, and he's sick. So we wish him get well soon. A couple other hands. Seth Hart, you just said that you have 12.6.3, but I think you meant 12.5.6.3, right?
I did. I apologize. Lots of
That's okay.
versions coming out, of course.
I'm going to get back to you. Omar?
Hardware 3 vehicles were seen testing outside Chuck Cook's house today. End-to-end on the highway, and all the latest stuff is going to come to Hardware 3. It's just going to be delayed. And I will say, yes, these versions have way too many numbers. Okay? It's confusing. No one can type it right. I feel like I'm in the lost hatch trying to type in all these numbers every 5 minutes on X and try and make sure I got them right. Wait, was it 12.5.6.3 or 12.6.5.3? Or was it 12.3.5.6? And, maybe just make it simple. 12 dot, let's keep it at 2 numbers, maybe 3
13.
max.
13. Just do 13. Let's skip to 13. Let's go. Just one number. About Tesla, where's the 13? Everybody's looking for the 13, the lucky number. What's going on?
I wish I knew.
Luce just sold all his shares because he said it was going to come September. Tesla team said it was going to come September. It didn't. And Luce is like, you know what? I'm selling all my shares until 13 comes.
Yeah, I don't believe them anymore. Lost all my faith in Tesla.
Wow. Luce is just making more enemies by the second. I think he was accepted to the witness protection program last night. He now goes by Lice. Lice is the new name. I wasn't supposed to say that. TSLA.
Yeah, hey everyone. I have a question about the numbers. When they say March of the Nines, and does the number of the version of FSD like 6.3 point dot, does the further out it goes means it's more refined?
Wes.
No, it refers to a branching structure. So every time you see an extra dot, that's an extra little cherry pick fix or change that they've done to a larger branch. So every time you see that little dot, it's a new branch. So when the branches come back together, we'll just see a major revision. So that's what most likely they'll be trying to do with 13 is they'll just start from a major trunk that's referred to as a trunk in software, and that'll be V13, and then they'll start branching off to that if they see certain issues on certain hardware or configurations. I hope that helps.
Thank you. Ellie.
So if we have to wait a year for FSD in Europe, I just don't understand why don't they release some version of Salmon so we can compete with other automakers for the
Well, that's why.
meantime.
You answered your own question. The European government does not want other automakers disadvantaged. That's my take. They're obviously never going to come out and say that. Okay. But this software is really good. I mean, we see hundreds of people now posting videos of FSD, and you can go to your nearby sales center and experience FSD by yourself, even if you don't have, or go to a friend, ask for them to do it, even if you don't have FSD. You can do it immediately. It's free. You can take it out for a half hour, 1 hour. They don't tell you where to go. You can take it anywhere. I think in some cases you can take it even overnight for a test drive and test it. It's really, 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 really good. Okay. And Europe does not want Tesla to bankrupt VW. That's the reason. And my question to Omar is, that's not going to change next year. So what gives the confidence that EU will approve FSD in Europe next year?
Well, they are actually going to bring smart sum into Europe. Smart summon is legal now. It's on cars that have ultrasonics. So they're going to bring the new actually smart sum into Europe. They mentioned this in their most recent post. I agree with you that if Volkswagen had this technology, it would be legal today. So there's definitely an element of regulatory capture. I mean, the state owns 20% of Volkswagen, one of the German states. But you can't fight progress, right? It's like saying, "Hey, we're going to protect our magazine companies by blocking the internet," right? People need the internet. It's just, if you want to be economically competitive, you want to be a modern society, this is something that has to happen, and that's why they're updating
I
the
mean, come on.
regulations.
Germany does not depend on the magazine industry. Europe does not depend on the magazine industry, but they do depend on the automotive industry. Without Volkswagen, there is no Germany. Without Germany, there is no Europe. So this is something I had to learn over the last few years that I thought that it would be approved by now. It's ridiculous that it's not approved by now. Every European should be ashamed of themselves for not writing. If you haven't written to your regulators, you should be ashamed of your politicians. And with that, Alexander and then Ellie.
Yeah, for actually smart summon, the private roads and parking lots work the same way here as it does in the US. So you can use actually smart summon without any problem.
Ellie.
I don't care about smart summon. I had to watch Xpeng and Hyundai today flexing their muscles in front of me in the showroom, Tesla showroom, that they can get their car out 5-10 meters. And I'm standing there with my Tesla, cannot do anything. So my question to Omar is, why can't they release, in your opinion, just a small version of summon, just 10 meters, like 30 feet nowadays?
Well, I told you, this is why they don't want Tesla to get ahead. They're trying to bring Elon down. They're trying to close X in Europe.
Well, he lives in Israel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's the same.
I mean, they are working on releasing Smart Summon for the European market. Yeah. So you'll have a version of Smart Summon that kicks the ass of that Xpeng. It'll make the Xpeng look like a joke by comparison.
Alexander.
My Model 3 can do 10 meters without any problem.
All right. Wes, do you think the March of Nines has started yet? Well, or let me ask you, when do you think the March of Nines is going to start?
I think it kind of has started. For instance, like highway stuff, now that we have end-to-end on highway as well, I think that started because we're seeing, it able to drive, essentially hundreds of thousands, if not millions of miles already on the highway without incident. So I'm pretty confident in that. However, I still think we need the feature complete build to really understand like kind of the foundation of which they're going to start the March of Nines across the entire feature set. So I think that you could extrapolate one feature being highways, to be pretty much on the March of Nines, and I think it has been for a long time. It's just now, end to end is needed because that's what you need to simply run on these lower hardwares. That like hardware 4 will be lower at some point than hardware 5, and you're going to need one model to kind of rule them all. So I would say that that's kind of started, but yeah, we need to see feature complete first.
Thank you, Wes. Any questions for Wes or Omar or anyone else on the board? Please request to speak. We are only 8 people away from 3,000 subscribers on YouTube. It's very important that we hit these goals so the visibility of the channel increases. Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel to help us achieve our goals. Hustle Town.
Just gonna try to apply some more pressure on Omar. 2 questions. One, when is that data like situation? How are we coming along with that? And then 2, you're able to film for 4 hours in your car. I need that video to show me how you set that up without the GoPro going crazy. Any status on that?
Yeah, you just have to make sure it doesn't get too hot. So that sometimes involves picking settings that are less data intensive. I had to go from 10-bit color down to 8-bit color. That seemed to help. But yeah, I was like really exhausted from sitting in one place when I got out of the car after 4 hours. And that was about, my car was at about 88%. I drove it down to 0%. So I literally drove FSD as far as the battery went, and I didn't have an intervention. But I was like, man, how do people think there's any demand to sit in a car for longer than this? Like this car can already go an extra, 12% more than I drove. Why would anyone want to do that without stopping?
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, we're going to talk about Rivian later as well, just to kind of give you a preview. Rivian just announced a deal with VW, opened up their JV, and I'm looking to short Rivian. I actually have a limit order in place at $15 per share. So if Rivian stock goes to 15, I'll short Rivian just a little bit, tiny bit. Wes.
I need to peace out. Thanks, y'all. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Wes. See you next time. Alexander.
Yeah, I want to read something for Omar for future references. Okay. Richard Fredriksson, a senior advisor from the Swedish Transport Administration, tested out Tesla full self-driving on German roads over the weekend. So that is not the Swiss representative, it's a Swedish representative. Okay. Please get that fact right.
Right. Swedish,
There, that part
what's
of
the
the world,
difference? Somewhere in that general area.
somewhere outside the US. Okay. Let's see. We just lost Seth. Seth, if you can come up and maybe we can have a discussion. If TSLA is also available, we can have a discussion on Uber. Something along those lines. Hertz is increasing used EV sales. Hertz is increasing its sales of used EVs from 20,000 to 30,000 units. They noted in their Q3 call that vehicle depreciation increased year over year by 89%. And they're not happy with the depreciation they've seen in their used EVs, primarily due to the price cuts that Tesla initiated and others had to match to some extent. So it was a bad investment on their part. They shouldn't be blaming Tesla or Elon or EVs in general. It's just kind of, they couldn't manage it. So if you're looking to buy a used Tesla, you can search for Hertz's website or go to Tesla's own used page. And Tesla gives you a 1-year warranty as well, which is worth about $1,000, $2,000, depending on the age of the vehicle. So, something to consider. We also have a potential sponsor along those lines that reached out to me this morning that may want to sponsor Tesla Live. All right, Tesla, how are you?
Doing good, Yaman. How's it going?
Good. How is FSD doing for you? Any news on your end?
FSD has been really good. I just got the latest version a couple days ago, and the highway is really good. I mean, everybody's been talking about it. So, I had one pedestrian issue, but it was, I think FSD was kind of unclear. They were kind of walking out, but then they weren't. So that was the only issue I've had. Other than that, it's been super smooth here in Southern California.
Okay, very good. We have a new speaker, Tommy. Go ahead.
Yeah, speaking of Switzerland, but in Sweden, where I grew up, where I think one of your speakers also grew up, it's very, very difficult to get a driver's license, and the lane markings are incredible, and the infrastructure is incredible. So I think it's a mistake to put all of Europe in one basket, blanket, even though it might be approved by the European Union. It's going to be very, very, very different for Tesla to roll it out in Sweden or Scandinavia versus Greece, Italy, Spain, where it's very, very chaotic.
Omar, any thoughts on that?
It'll vary from place to place. It's a question mark. We don't know.
Do you think FSD is going to roll out in Europe, country by country?
It's hard to say. I'm not a regulatory expert.
Alexander, any thoughts on that? Do you think FSD is going to roll out country by country? And then Luce.
Yeah, it might be because as we concluded in an earlier space, Swedish drivers are much better drivers than American drivers. So the demand or like the bar is really higher here than it is in the US.
Okay, Alexander has pointed out in the earlier space that Europeans get into an accident about every 1 million miles, as opposed to Americans getting into an accident, one accident every 500,000 miles. So Alexander has concluded prematurely, in my opinion, that Europeans are safer drivers, and others have pointed out, I believe it was David Katz who pointed out that the infrastructure in Europe is different, very different than US infrastructure. Luce.
Yeah, so Europe presents a new, like a total new set of challenges, and the roads themselves are completely different. The dimensions, the intersections. In fact, I would be skeptical that the current cameras positioning is good enough for such tight streets or tight intersection, but we will see. But I'm skeptical.
Wow, Luce, you're going to be blamed for spreading FUD. I've been around since 2016 around Tesla communities, and highly recommend just sticking to facts. When you're short, actually, you're not short to stock. You sold all your shares, but essentially the same thing. Luce?
So I will tell you something, Yaman. So basically, some intersection in Italy, I don't see nothing. Okay, I don't see shit. Okay, and I go by faith slowly. Okay, and pray. And you want to and whatever camera you put on the car in the position they have, even like I don't believe they can do better than me.
Okay. All right. You know what? Let's get started on this. Since you threw the first punch here, Luce sold all of his shares yesterday, and we started talking about it in the second half of yesterday's space. If you want to listen to that part, and now he is out there posting memes. Let me post one of these at the top of our screens. Look at this. Look at this. This confidence, this level of confidence. He goes, "Guess who's back?" with a mask on his face, and now telling here that FSD isn't going to make it in Europe. How about that? He expects a 50% drop, about 50% drop to $180 per share. He hopes to buy his shares back at around $180 per share. Luce, how many death threats have you gotten so far?
Well, look, Yaman, to be honest, I would not like be a deterrent for people to listening to the space if they don't like my take and so on. But I hope that I have a different opinion and people are interested. But I will tell you something. So basically,
well, just on that note, if somebody is not interested in a balanced debate, they should not be in Tesla Live anyway. So I'm not worried about losing listeners or anything like that as you speak. What I do recommend, though, however, is make sure you get 100% of your facts right in these debates and focus on sharing facts more than projections. And even when you forecast projection, identify it, label it as an opinion, and support it with facts and logic and math. So the more specific facts, logic, math you can share to support your opinions, the better for the discussion quality, better for you, your perception in the community, and also the space. So let's go to Omar.
You know, I think Luce obviously is in charge of his own money. He has to make his own decisions, but I think he's making a decision we're going to come back and laugh at for quite some time. Luce has made himself the Ronald Wayne of Tesla. Who's Ronald Wayne? Well, you know, Apple, Steve Jobs, and Steve Wozniak. Did you know there was a third founder, Ronald Wayne? He owned 10% of Apple, would be worth $300 billion today, but he panicked and he got his money back for $1,500 1 year later, right before the computer industry blew up. I mean, you know, you can hear these kind of arguments, oh, FSD is not going to work, it won't work in Europe, but the reality is we just talked about the demo that they gave. They gave the demo, it worked the same as the United States. The roads in a lot of Europe are not that different than cities like San Francisco, or you know, German cities are not that different than American cities, really. You know, they have their own peculiarities, but autopilot and navigate on autopilot are already running on highways in these cities just fine, right? I mean, people use these technologies for years, and they've you know, been testing, demoing FSD in Europe as well. And then in terms of his sort of blind intersection where he can't see anything, what the car is going to be able to do is benefit from millions and millions of examples. It's going to be able to see shadows, subtle movements, things that you can't see looking in every direction. It's going to be able to actually talk to other cars. So as a Tesla is driving by on the intersection that you're trying to cross into, it'll let you know, hey, okay, I'm about to pass you. After me, there should be a space for about 10 seconds, and it can prepare and it can go. And that's how it'll actually beat human performance in situations like that. So, you know, it's easy to say, oh, this will never work. This is, you know, they're going to need new cameras. Europe's so challenging. But the reality is, it is actually working and being demoed.
Luce, which country in Europe do you think will get FSD first? And let's say not just a few Tesla employees or early adopters, let's say thousands of Teslas will roam through the streets of which country first?
So I would say Germany, has to be Germany.
What about Norway?
So the problem with Norway or those other countries is that I don't think they are the ones that take the decisions. I think everything starts from Germany and the European Commission around this. So I think it will be approved basically in Germany for this reason.
Very interesting. Sounds like Husselton agrees with you. Husselton, would you like to add a couple of words with that?
No, it just makes sense that it would start there. Norway would be
Yeah.
ideal, I think, but it makes sense.
Yeah, interesting. Very interesting. So Lucha says, even though Norway has a higher concentration of Tesla, let's say Teslas have been in Norway for what, 10 years now? Germany makes the decisions in Europe. Ellie?
No, I just want to jump in. I would say Holland because that's the HQ, the European HQ for Tesla. So a lot of employees, supervise before it goes wide.
Yeah, the Netherlands. And are they part of the are they part of the EU?
Yes, they are.
Yeah. So that they've mentioned that as a location before. Elon's mentioned that in the past.
Well, let me know in replies or in live chat what you think. Which country in Europe will have more than 1,000 Teslas using FSD? And Omar said they're going to send the Smart Summer first. Actually, Smart Summer first. But that also has to be approved, right, Omar? So it's the same problem.
No, it's already approved.
So why haven't they sent it yet?
Well, they're probably just doing some testing to make sure that it works well with Europe, European situations. There's also some changes that are needed. I think in some countries they require you to be within Bluetooth range. So that's kind of an additional limitation. But they did mention in their post that they're working on getting that out soon.
All right, people are letting me know their guesses in live chat. Vignesh says Germany, Gideon says Netherlands, and Darius says Norway is not a member of the European Union. Omar, do you think that makes it easier, or maybe more likely that Norway may be first since they're not part of the EU?
I mean, to be honest, I'm not sure the EU really has anything to do with this. I think the relevant regulations are actually UNECE regulations, which are actually, it's like a part of the United Nations. And they said, hey, look, this is like a disaster having all these countries have different regulatory standards for vehicles. Everyone's pulling their hair out. What if we just set one set of safety standards and everyone could just adopt that around the world, and it would make it easy to get products into that market? So it's actually not only European countries we're talking about here. We're talking about Australia. We're talking about New Zealand. We're talking about other countries that are also following these standards. And my understanding, again, I'm not an expert on this, is my understanding is the EU has just kind of deferred to this body and they just adopt the standards from this body.
Ellie.
Yeah, Omar, you are correct because, for example, in Israel, we walk under the European regulation, so it doesn't really matter if we are part of Europe or not. A lot of countries are under the European regulation.
Exactly. So once this changes, it's like a dam breaking in terms of a revenue opportunity for FSD, or I mean, the revenue potential. Obviously, if the technology is illegal to sell in a supervised manner, then you can't generate any revenue from it. The minute you can, this goes from being 33% of Tesla customers to maybe 90% of Tesla customers or 80% of customers are able to subscribe.
Okay. Luce, Omar said that he expects FSD in China in 2025 and FSD in Europe, maybe by the end of 2025, but probably 2026. Do you agree with that timeline?
Well, on China, yes, 100%. I think it's possible. I think that in Europe, FSD is so far away for so many reasons that I really don't have a clear opinion on what is going to happen there. I think it's not going to work. Like, it's not going to work in Europe. So how can I say that in 2025 or 2026
Okay.
it's going to be released?
Let's focus on China then. So, I mean, I do agree with Omar that at some point FSD will work everywhere. You know, if a human can drive it, I think FSD will be able to drive it. Definitely, it's just a matter of training time. It's just a matter of time. But since you believe that China will definitely have FSD in 2025, that would mean hundreds of thousands of people using FSD overnight when Tesla sends its software to them. Incrementally, that's a huge growth rate for FSD. And possibly by the end of 2025, that could mean about 1 million Tesla owners in China using FSD. Doesn't that worry you? Doesn't that give you a bit of a FOMO because you sold all your shares already? If you believe definitely China will have FSD in 2025.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be obviously released in China, but I think it's going to be a closed up area. Like, it's not geofenced in the sense that they scanned the area like they did in WeRobot. But I think it's going to be available only, I don't know, in one city or an area or on specific areas. I think for a full release, it's going to be like 2 or 3 years there.
Okay, Omar, so Lucha says that maybe, I'm just guessing, a city, Shanghai, seems to be very favorable for Tesla. Maybe Shanghai will have it in 2025, but maybe the rest of the country in China will depend on a couple more years of training and data and approval process. Let's give Lucha one more word and then to finish it, Lucha.
So for my understanding, it's like this for Chinese companies as well. And they are like with radars and HD maps, and it works like this for them as well. And why should be better for Tesla?
Interesting. That's a really good point. So even though China has, a dictator-like leadership, they're still going it by city, just like Waymo is having to do in the US. Omar, what do you think about Lucha's points?
Well, I don't think there's any such regulation on ADAS that it has to roll out city by city, right? So there's no problem rolling out a national ADAS. Some of the car companies may have a technical limitation in that they're doing HD mapping, so they need to prepare that on a city by city basis, but Tesla has no such restriction. So it should work in China the same way that it works in the United States. And frankly, even one city in China, I mean, China's got cities that have populations, greater than entire states. The population of Shanghai alone is 24 million people. Sorry, 25 million people. And, it's just funny that he's saying it doesn't work. I understand for Europeans, it can be kind of hard to imagine before you see it. But again, it's been demoed in Europe. It works in Europe. It doesn't need to work 100% in every situation for them to launch FSD supervised. I could find some really challenging situation that it struggles with here in the United States. But Europe's a pretty big place. They've got these tight city centers, they've got highways, they've got more suburban areas. I've been to Europe. It doesn't look that different than the United States. It's like, oh, this is some bizarro world. How are they ever going to get it to work? Some places, yeah, it probably won't work. Some places will be too hard for it. But that doesn't mean you can't roll out FSD supervised and let people turn it on when it works and drive themselves when they need to.
Yeah, and Luce, I mean, to add on top of that, Tesla can always avoid a certain intersection. If it's that difficult that, just like humans avoid intersections and still get to their destination, you can still roll out a multi-trillion-dollar software and avoid a couple of intersections around the world. Who cares, right?
So you want me to answer? So first of all, it's not like the companies in China are going by city because of limitations. Like I'm pretty sure I read whenever it was months ago that the China government might open like FSD for a certain area for testing. So it's not like it's going around because of the limitations. And so regarding Europe, like how do we avoid an intersection? Like Yaman, to go to a place in Europe, you have one road, okay? And you change that road, it takes 30, 40 minutes more. Like I'm gonna avoid that road. Like I don't think it's sensible. It has to work everywhere.
Okay. Luce, we have a response for you in YouTube live chat that says, Luce needs to put his butt in the seat of FSD Tesla and only then evaluate his position. For now, I believe his only option is to listen to what Americans say. Oh my God. Well, this is coming from a European, so maybe that's a little more palatable. But Luce, I'm sure you've watched many hours of FSD videos. I'm sure you're glued to Omar's accounts before you decide to sell your entire Tesla position. And where do you think FSD is today from a technical capability perspective? Let's say in Omar's area or in California or in Austin, Texas. How many of the miles do you think FSD supervised can handle without any interventions?
So I will tell you what scares me. So if I open FSD tracker, it says that the current version can go 100, 170, 180 miles for critical intervention. And
Yeah, I was afraid that you were going to say that. I was afraid here that you were going to mention FSD tracker because Omar just had a heart attack and he's not coming to Tesla Live again. Luce?
Okay, so, but that's not the worst part. The worst part is the critical intervention in city streets, which is a little bit less than 30. And I understand that, okay, in average, it can be 100,000, it can be 500,000 and could be okay. But okay, so, but the critical intervention rate in city street, it's 4 or 5 times less like miles for critical intervention than in general. okay, it goes well on highways basically, and it's very critical in cities for what I see.
Okay, Luce, before I go to Omar, is there anything else you can, share with us to support your position outside of the community FSD tracker, which many people believe is lagging the actual process Tesla is seeing?
Yeah. So I can also share the fact that, in my opinion, I don't see the adoption of FSD being like 20-30% of the entire fleet until it's fully autonomous. I don't see how it's gonna change the current situation.
Okay, Omar, would you like to respond to Luce?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people just ask the wrong questions. Obviously the community tracker is a limited data set. It's not reflective of the latest software. It has its own biases, but anyone can sort of independently measure it themselves. But I mean, the key is this. I had to go to San Francisco to take care of something. So I drove there for 6 hours and drove back. So I did 12 hours of driving in, within 24 hours or so. So a lot of driving. And I got in this thing. I said, take me. I pushed one button and it took me there. I didn't have to touch the wheels. When you're driving manually for 12 hours, your arms hurt. You're physically fatigued. You're having to pay close attention. Any small lapse in attention could be the end of your life. So this strains your body and mind. Having this technology, and it was able to drive the entire way without me touching anything. Okay. Nobody's asking, well, what's the rate of critical interventions or anything like that? It's just a lifesaver. And, people go, well, it's not unsupervised yet. So your argument is that it's about to get way better. So that's why it sucks. I mean, the value is increasing exponentially. I think really with no nag, for the first time, it's a consumer grade product. And I think people who don't use it don't realize how close to unsupervised it really is. Granted, yes, it makes mistakes. For example, I was driving and it started raining and it tried to change lanes into a lane that was actually a shoulder, not a traveling lane. And so I had to disengage. So things like that do happen. But on the way back, 7 hours, didn't touch a thing. So really,
Yeah.
what's the difference between that and an unsupervised experience? Obviously, it would be nice to take a nap, but even that, not having to touch the wheel, is a big leap forward from being strained for hours and hours.
All right, thank you, Omar. Arthur Blake, and then Ali.
Last time the stock was at this level was about April 2022-ish. And the company is head and shoulders above where it was back then as far as profitability. Huge amount of uncertainty has now been removed with the results of this election in Elon's favor. At any moment, full unsupervised driving could come out. Like it could be 3 months away, 6 months away, 9 months away. It kind of doesn't matter. They've just doubled the amount of energy that they are selling. So that's a whole new stream of revenue that Wall Street is starting to recognize. I think to sell right now is going to go down as one of the worst decisions. And I've been in the stock since 2010, right after IPO. I bought 250 shares at $20.75. Split adjusted, that's now about $4 a share. And I made the mistake of trying to time the market, selling, buying, selling, buying, selling, buying, until about 2018 when I realized I just need to hold a big position. And ever since then, I've accumulated more wealth than I can imagine. So like if this stock goes below 300, I'm buying because I don't think it's pretty likely that's not going to happen again. Not anytime soon.
Thank you, Arthur. Yep.
Thanks.
Ellie?
I just think it's funny how every time a bear is talking about FSD, is going automatically to the FSD tracker, because you just need to experience FSD. Luce, I experienced FSD for 3,000 kilometers in the US. And then I've been living in Europe. I've been driving and living in Barcelona, Holland, France, UK, some other countries that I can remember. Now, for you to come and say, because you're Italian, that Europe is not suitable or FSD is not suitable for Europe, that's just wrong. In some cases, okay, you can just take charge. You can be in charge. You can take control. But Europe is fantastic. You have fantastic roads, fantastic streets, wide, smart. People know how to drive. It's not a village, or I don't know, from 50 years ago, like you're trying to sell here. Now, in the worst case for Omar, I would say, I can see FSD traveling with bridges. Some bridges in Europe has only one lane, and you need to be smart about it. That's the only way, and the only scenario I can see FSD struggling.
Okay. You know, Luce is actually a bull. He's not a bear, just to kind of clarify. He's a long-time Tesla investor. He comes to these spaces almost daily. He's one of our permanent speakers. And he did not short the stock. He sold his position because of valuation concerns primarily. And I'm going to give him a chance to respond. But before that, I'm going to read our audio ads. And in the meantime, I would really like everyone in the X space. We have a couple hundred people here. Please head over to the YouTube channel through the link at the top of our screens and hit that like button. We're at 172 likes. Let's see if we can get to 200 before I finish our audio ads. Okay. Tesla Live is proudly sponsored by Joa. Are you looking to elevate your Tesla driving experience? Look no further than Joa. They offer a wide range of high-quality accessories designed specifically for Tesla owners who demand the best. Use promo code TSLA Live at checkout to receive a special discount on your next purchase. And Tesla Live is proudly sponsored by PayMore. Want to turn your old devices into cash? With over 100 stores nationwide, PayMore makes it easy and secure. They believe that the best technology doesn't have to come at the cost of our planet or your wallet. Visit them online at paymore.com. Thank you, PayMore, and thank you, Joa, for sponsoring Tesla Live and the Tesla community. And also, we have another sponsor who asked that one speaker say their favorite Elon Musk quote each time. So let's go to Arthur Blake. Arthur, what is your favorite Elon Musk quote of all time? Arthur, you're on mute. All right, let's go to Luce. Luce, what's your favorite Elon Musk quote of all time?
I liked when he said that his best advice is to be less wrong, to try to be less wrong. I like that.
Yeah, we're all wrong. Try to be less wrong. Got it. Thank you, Luce. So would you like to respond to what Omar said?
Yeah, no, in general. So you are trying, or you think that I'm a Tesla bear, but I'm not. I think that in 5-10 years, this valuation is more than acceptable. In fact, if you want to hold the stock 15 years from now, you can even buy now. It's totally fine. So what is the problem? The problem is the objective you want to achieve by owning the stock or investing in general. If, like Arthur said, that he accumulated as much wealth as he ever would imagine he could by holding the stock, obviously he doesn't need to buy to sell. He doesn't need to play. He doesn't need any extra. He just need to hold his already maybe well set off to like independence or whatever. Omar as well. I hear his story. I heard this story. I don't know where. I remember that he comes, from what I understand, from a well-off family. That I don't know but for what I understand, that he with successful company, and he himself was quite successful. So Omar obviously can hold like from here to 20 years on, and he has enough cash to support his lifestyle. He doesn't need to care about anything. But for the people that need that extra, that need to be able to buy Tesla on a lower price, to be able it needs to that extra. It needs to play. It needs to create its own luck. Now it's a good moment to take that profit, and obviously you can take your chances go up to achieve your objective if you sell now. And yeah, basically that.
Okay. Edward.
Yeah, I have a great quote from Elon Musk, and it's the most important thing he's probably ever said, and it applies to this space probably more than the other spaces. Okay, the poor stay poor because they spend all of their money. The middle class stay middle class because they save all of their money. The wealthy become wealthy because they invest their money.
Wait, when did Elon Musk say that?
I can show you the post that he linked like a couple weeks ago.
Oh, he linked. Okay. Yeah. Can you reply to it? I actually didn't see that one. Can you reply to the space with it, please? And if you're listening in X, you can reply to the space with your favorite Elon Musk quote. And if you're on YouTube, please leave in live chat your favorite Elon Musk quote. And if you're listening to the recording, you can do so in a comment below the video. I'm curious about people's favorite quote. This is a sponsored request, and it's actually a pretty good one. Edward. Sorry, you just spoke. Ellie.
No, I just wanted to respond to Luce. Luce, I'm the opposite of what you described regarding other people. I have no money, but all my money is in Tesla. I'm happy with my investment, and I'm staying there. So, some other people doing the same thing like Omar.
Alexander.
First of all, my favorite quote is, "I'm gonna buy Coca-Cola next to put the cocaine back in." Second of all, I kind of understand Lucia's point, and I'm gonna lie if I haven't thought about the same strategy as he have. I was actually thinking about this when it hit all-time highs in 21, but I was like, oh, there's still more upside. I can't sell. I will be sorry for it. So I really respect Lucia's point here, and yeah. I've actually been thinking about the same thing, but I guess I'm too weak to actually do it.
Whoa, hold on a second. Did you say you're thinking about selling all of your Tesla shares?
No, I've been thinking about not all of them, but take a good portion and sell and wait for a drop. But I hadn't had the stomach to pull the trigger on that, because if I'm wrong, I would cry myself to sleep every night. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. This is amazing. We have some longtime bulls. One of them sold all of his shares. One of them is thinking about taking some profits. Let's bring in Omar to calm down the nerves, and then Machine.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has to do what's best for them, but I just tweeted this picture of the Tesla all-time chart, and you look at the last run up, and there were several large pullbacks where the bears celebrated, and it was just the beginning of what we saw. So autonomy is about to change the world. Autonomous robots and autonomous cars. This is so obvious to anybody who is using Waymo to get around, is using FSD to do all their driving. I mean, it's already doing so much. We already have driverless services. We have cars without steering wheels and pedals. But most people still doubt it. Their brain just cannot wrap their head around it for some reason. And I think the market price reflects that, right? So you're going to see this dawn on the world over the coming years. They're going to see it, they're going to experience it. And I think people's expectations will change. But right now, the price is where it is in part because most people actually agree with Luce. They agree with his viewpoint. So, you kind of have to decide, okay, am I going to...
How are most people agreeing with Luce when Tesla is literally one of the most popular stocks owned by retail investors?
I mean, I think if people really were able to wrap their head around the magnitude of what is going to happen, it would probably be several $1 trillion.
All right, let's go to Kwai, Jordan, and then Machine. And I have a word for Machine real quick. Kwai?
Omar might be able to help me with this quote. Everybody was crying about the yoke steering wheel. And Elon quoted, well, eventually there won't even be any steering wheel in my vehicles. That's my favorite quote.
Thank you. All right, Machine, you're going to appreciate this story. This is going to make your head bigger, but I'm going to tell it nonetheless. I actually went on a few dates with somebody recently, and she listens to the space, and I said to her, she says, we had an episode recently, it's a couple days ago. I said, did you listen to the episode? And she goes, how can I miss Machine's sexy, sultry voice?
Well, to your lady friend, I'm here now. And, I think you should continue dating Iman under one condition. When you guys have sexy time, think of me.
Okay, wonderful. All right, let's go to MTM. Maureen, how are you? Machine, go ahead.
I mean, I had to come in on this issue about, obviously, people concerned if they should sell their Tesla stock or not. And, I think that's a personal decision. But, I just caution people in my personal experience, which has stemmed from the making a lot of money holding the stock, 15xing my value, to losing lots of it and having this psychological battle. And that was like basically being all in, right? This wasn't like, oh, I own 20 stocks. It was, I own Tesla. And the sheer psychological nature of that it can deem a lot of anxiety and stress on you. So I think it really depends if this is 5% of your portfolio, then would I worry so much if I need to sell right now versus, and trying to buy in later versus just holding? No, I wouldn't worry as much. If it's most of my portfolio and the volatility is a concern, then I would caution, don't be greedy. It may hurt to lose out on profits, but trust me, it hurts more to lose profits.
Nothing says you should trust someone as when they say trust me in that voice. Maureen, how are you?
Hi, Yaman. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. What's new with you?
Thank you for writing up some tweets. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I thought maybe you would like that. I'm going to be more active on X now with written tweets because Maureen kind of nudged me.
Good. That's good. I have a quote from Elon. I don't know if it's my favorite, but I either spit out my coffee or laughed out loud for sure when I read it. It was when someone asked him or told him that he should buy Twitter, and his response was, "How much does it cost?" And like that should go down in history when we found out actually how much it cost.
Thank you very much for coming up. Yeah, if you all have any Elon Musk favorite quotes, leave it in comments below the space or in live chat as well. I'll read out a couple of them that kind of stick out. True to a T says, one day people will be shocked that humans were once in charge of these 2,000-pound, 2-ton death machines. Per Elon Musk. That's a quote from Elon. Hustle Town said, driving an ICE vehicle is going to feel like riding a horse using a flip phone. Yeah. Luce.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk with Eli, just 2 words to understand this point of view better. So, Eli, what market cap should Tesla be today for you to achieve your financial objective, to understand you better? Like, what would it be?
Well, I don't know about market cap. I'm not following the market. I'm not a technical guy. Obviously, we're talking about several trillions dollars. My selling target is above 1,500,000. Oh, 1,500.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. So can you tell me what in your mind are the chances of Tesla going back to 240? What are the chances?
Of course, it will go down. We don't mind. When we go long, we go long. If the stock goes down, it goes down. But nothing changed about the company.
I'm
You know that.
gonna interject here because this is really not related to Tesla's fundamentals, which is really what I'm interested in. And these are kind of like personal finance opinion type of discussions, which I don't think that really belongs to the space here. Machine.
No, I mean more related to Tesla financials. You know, and I would say long term buy and hold. I'm not bearish long term, but if you look at the current valuation based on their net income generation, let's just say it's quite high for not just compared to other companies, which we know, but compared to Tesla itself historically, it's at a pretty high level. So I would just say I would not be concerned if no other news came out, which obviously is kind of absurd because there could be new news. If no other news came out, I don't expect the stock to suddenly double from here and to have, you know, PE ratios or forward PE ratios of 200, unless obviously robotaxi becomes unsupervised, then the whole game changes.
Earlier, Omar predicted that FSD unsupervised. Maury, you have to put yourself on mute when you're not talking. Did you have anything else to say?
You know, I will jump in if you have a second on this topic.
Okay, go ahead.
So, as you know, I'm a long-term holder. I first bought Tesla in 2013, and then I increased it up until 2021, and then I bought some options, and then, you know, the whole thing kind of tumbled, and I've held on pretty much to all of it. But I am debating. You know, I was kicking myself after 2021 that I didn't take some off the table. And I am in that position a bit now, thinking about it. I'm not as young as a lot of people who are speaking, and there's things I want to do. And I'm just thinking about it. I'm not sure. I'm not struggling financially, but it is a chunk of change that I'd hate to lose it. As someone just said, it's one thing to lose future profit. It's something else to lose what you have already, and you just were too greedy to take some off the table.
Thank you, Maureen. Alexander?
Yeah, first of all, on a stock price at $1,500,000, I would buy a country that we can all live in. Second of all, I kind of want to know what the board thinks that the market cap of Tesla will be in the end of 2026. No, 2025, I mean.
End of 2025. So basically a year from now. Lucia, let's start with you.
I think it's going to be 1 trillion, but before it's going to go down.
Okay. Ellie, what do you think?
I don't care, but 2 trillion.
Okay. Hustle Town?
Yeah, I'm gonna go somewhere in between $1.5 and $2 trillion.
Okay. So to put it in perspective for the audience, currently the Tesla market cap is $1 trillion, $1 trillion, which is very close to the top, all-time highs. And share your view in the comments, in live chat, in the reply to the space, or comments below the video, what you believe Tesla's market cap will be a year from today. A year from today in Q4 2025, say end of next year. What do you think will be Tesla's market cap? And I'm going to post this question as a poll to Spotify as well. Spotify allows one poll per upload. And you can find Tesla Live on Spotify by searching for TSLA Live, and it comes up right up. Let's go to Machine. Machine, what do you think is going to be the Tesla market cap a year from today?
I think it will be 20% higher than it is currently, and it's not going there in a straight line. And if I'm not financial advice, but that's where people, if they want to feel better, they can do things like sell covered calls, where they might do it out of the money so they can get those gains, but also hedge a little bit downward, so they feel a little better. But anyways, that's a separate conversation.
So you think it's going to be 20% higher, so $1.2 trillion, right?
Yep.
Okay. Do you expect the same fall that Luce is talking about?
Yeah, I mean, there's almost historically, if you go look at Tesla or any other stock, if it rises 40% in a month, there's usually a correction. And the stock market in general is having a huge response, which I'm not saying is invalid, but usually you have some correction after. It's just the psychology of making so much profit at different levels. Institutional buyers, at some point, they take some profits. At some point, the positivity of thinking about a new presidency, at some point, some people are like, wait a second, I'm worried about something else. And there's going to be some correction. Now, who knows? Maybe that correction happens a few months from now and it starts at a higher spot and it ends up where you're still higher after the correction than we are today. Those things are possible.
Edward.
Yeah, I just had a comment about what the woman was talking about earlier, and I appreciate what she was saying, and it triggered a response and timeline where, I think most of us here are long-term investors. There's some of us that are traders, but I think the timeline and your age are very important on how much risk that you take in your investments. If you're 70, you should be protecting your money. And if you are 20, you should be trying to generate it. And so in between, there's most of us are in between that kind of range. And so we're trying to do both. We're trying to protect it, but we're also trying to make money. And that's a key factor. It's not just I just want to all in this and all in that mindset. It just depends on those key factors.
Okay. I mean, again, these are personal finance questions, which I'm not interested in. I'm interested in Tesla's fundamentals. So I'm going to move down a couple of people here that seem to be focused on the wrong stuff. And if you want personal financial advice, you should go to your personal financial advisor. Machine.
The only personal thing I want to know is, who's this lady you're dating? What's her profile so I can DM her?
Machine, yesterday you mentioned that there are two founders of Palantir, and you were wrong, as you know. Why did you misstate the founders of Palantir?
First of all, oh man, your brain's not working. We were talking about PayPal.
Yeah, PayPal, sorry.
And I was making a joke, ignoring Elon Musk. It was actually two different. Let me educate you a bit. Not that I know all of the details. There were two companies. One was Confinity, which had Peter Thiel, David Sachs, was it Reid Hoffman, some other people. And the other company, X, by your lover, mentally, Elon Musk. And they joined together. And then they kicked out Elon Musk when he was on vacation or something.
Yeah, I understand. But when I look at founders of PayPal, it says Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Max Levchin, Luke Nosek, Ken Howery, and Yu Pen. You also mentioned David Sachs, which is not on the list. So what gives?
Maybe I'm wrong. He wasn't a co-founder, but he was part of PayPal.
Yeah, he joined later. I think Peter Thiel recruited him later on, and then he became COO. Would you like to say a few words where you get the facts right, then wrong?
Sure. To the lady dating Yaman, I'm 6 foot, 200 pounds, 11% body fat, blonde hair, blue eyes. Yaman, as you know, 5 foot tall, bald, beer belly, former swimmer, doesn't do anything else other than sit on Tesla Spaces all day.
She actually likes bald guys, so there you go. You struck out already.
So she says to you.
Yeah. Yes. She's not listening right now, so you're kind of talking to an empty crowd, into a pillow, like you do every night.
She's in anonymous mode, so she can please
Yeah,
herself.
she's busy. She's busy. Randy?
Yes, I live in a hugely conservative area. And one of the things that I've seen in the last few days since the election is multiple friends that never would have thought of looking at Tesla before. I've sold 2 Teslas in the last few days and had inquiries from tons of different friends and different people that are finally on Team Elon. And I am very curious to see how this affects earnings and going forward. So thinking about selling my stock now is not even in my vocabulary.
Thanks, Randy. No Clue says any female speaker is a suspect. So funny. Alexander?
From your description machine, I see He-Man in front of me. Do you have a sword as well?
Dude, Machine is one of those guys who's not really 6 foot, but says 6 foot. He's kind of rounding up. We've all seen him next to Omar and Meta. So anyway, not that that matters. Machine said blind hair. Did you say blind hair, Machine?
Blonde
That's
hair,
what
although
Michelle heard.
a little bit gray, starting to gray at this old
Are you
age.
really? How are you
Yeah.
again? I mean, how old are you? 47?
44. Got a little white hair on the sides now. I cut my hair, so it's short.
I started getting white hair in my mid-30s.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the stress from holding Tesla as your only stock.
It's just
for
from
10
talking
years.
to you every single day.
And it is true. I'm like 2 millimeters under 6 feet.
Yeah. How did I know? All right. Anyway, we have a lot to talk about here, and like I mentioned earlier, I am looking into shorting Rivian if the stock goes to $15 per share. Rivian just announced that they got another $800 million from VW. The JV joint venture is formed. It's going to have about 1,000 engineers in Palo Alto, plus a bunch of other locations, and then they increase the deal size. It sounds like to $5.6 billion. So VW wants to give Rivian more cash. I think that deal is going to get canceled because I don't think VW can even support itself. So I don't think Rivian will ever get that $5+ billion. But I'm curious about Machine's thoughts. Rivian stock right now is at 12 something. Let's see, 1206. It was about 1252 as we started the space, and now it's kind of declined a little bit. So maybe I won't get a chance to short it, but that's all right. Machine, what do you think about this?
Honestly, it's hard for me to comment because I did not listen to Rivian's latest earnings call. I don't know.
Well, you can listen to our watch party where we covered every single thing about Rivian's Q3 earnings. Hustletown was there. We went through the earnings release, the financial statements, and all the earnings call comments one by one. We paused the video. It took about 3 hours. And I know you have nothing else to do this Friday because who wants to hang out with you? Even your wife is hanging out with other people. So you can watch the Rivian watch party.
Oh, maybe. Yeah. I'm very busy these days.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Any thoughts about, by the way, Ford cut production of EVs in Europe Hertz increasing used EV sales up from 20,000 to 30,000. So check out the Hertz website if you guys are looking to get a used EV, especially if you're in a Democratic state, like a state that definitely voted for the Democrats. There's a bunch of people dumping their Teslas because of Elon's political positions. So you might get a really good deal on a used Tesla. So take advantage of that mispricing in the market. And like, for example, Jersey has a lot of good deals right now. You can get a used Model 3 for less than $10,000, which is amazing. A used Model Y for less than $20,000. Waymo is opening up its service to everybody in Los Angeles. So after San Francisco, Los Angeles, and San Francisco, Phoenix, now in LA, anybody can download the Waymo app and start riding. Waymo has already provided 100,000 rides in LA, and it noted that they got 4.7 stars out of 5 stars. And so if you're in one of those cities, you can try Waymo and come up to speaker board on Tesla Live and let us know what you think. CATL announced that it's open to building factories in the US, open to building battery factories in the US if the Trump administration allows it. Interesting. Luce, let me ask you something. Does Elon's involvement in politics and the Department of Government Efficiency now with Vivek, has that ever played a role in your decision to sell all of your shares?
Yeah, so at this time, I don't expect really Elon to put that much time in Tesla. He hasn't done that in years. But I'm telling you something. If in any case there are any policy that go against Tesla, okay, there will be a huge sentiment that basically Elon is basically betraying them because now he's in politics and are passing like legislation against them. So there will be a huge wave of mistrust in Elon.
You said Elon hasn't spent much time in Tesla in recent years, but you don't have any support for that, do you?
No, it just adds one job every year. So no, nothing to no proof.
Okay. Sultan, what do you think about Elon's involvement in the Department of Government Efficiency Doge? Doge prices surged after the announcement. Let's see. Right now is at 0.4 USD, up from 0.1 a couple months ago. So it's a 4x return on Doge cryptocurrency.
I don't really think it'll impact. It'll take up some of his mental space, but I mean the guy's got plenty. I just think the reason why they put two guys in there is because they want everyone to know that Elon's a part of it, but it's still going to be like a ceremonial type thing. He's going to have his say, but I don't think it'll impact him too much when it comes to the day-to-day business with SpaceX, Tesla, Neuralink, and so forth. So I think it could be a reason why maybe the stock is trading kind of flat today because people are concerned about it, is bringing it up, but this man is not a normal man. He is doing things way beyond the rest of us can even comprehend, and he's doing it successfully. Is what it's like he's Tom Bradying this thing. Nobody understands how he does it, but he's doing it.
Okay. Luce, the stock is down 1% actually. Tesla stock is drifting down, and Rivian is also coming down pretty fast after I said I was looking into shorting it. So it doesn't look like I'm going to get a chance, but it's now come to below $12 per share. Let's focus on Tesla. You said that you expect the stock to go down below 200, right? What would change your opinion that would kind of make you rush towards buying back the stock, even at higher prices?
The only way is V13 for real. Like I see
So
V13.
let's say V13 comes out tomorrow and starts rolling out to Omar's cars and a bunch of other cars. Let's assume for a second that starts happening. And it's a pretty rapid rollout over the next month or two. So by Christmas, let's say hundreds of thousands of cars have it. We have hundreds of videos on YouTube. what would you have to see on those YouTube videos to buy back your shares? And or would that be enough? Or would you have to see some progress on the community tracker?
Yeah, I would have to see progress on the community tracker. Yeah.
What number are you looking for with V13?
Has to be impressive, at least like 1,500, 2,000, and especially a huge improvement in miles for critical interventions in cities that right now is only 30.
So you're saying 1,000 to 1,500 miles per critical intervention on including city streets and highways, right? And on top of that, it's a significant increase in miles between critical interventions on city streets. Thank you, Luce. Yoda?
Luce, I'll keep this short because you were a long-term and significant shareholder. Now that you have cash and money, try to get a ticket to the US and try to test drive FSD 12 series, or maybe by then it's close to 13. And I think you want to really honestly experience FSD yourself, and then tell us your thoughts.
Luce, do you have an opportunity to experience FSD? That's part one. And part two, do you feel like you're missing out on investment insight by not having experienced FSD yourself?
Yeah, I will have an opportunity maybe this summer. I will go in Canada, by the way. I think it's the same. And no, I don't think I'm missing an opportunity not testing it right now.
Yoda, Luce says that he is investing based on data that he's seeing on the community tracker, that he doesn't feel like he's missing anything by not having experience firsthand. What would you tell him to convince him that he is?
I don't want to get your YouTube delisted here, but Luce, you know, watching that stuff and doing that stuff is different. You know, that's all I have to say.
Luce?
So the problem is that even if FSD is way better than I think, like still not enough people use it, or I don't see an increment in the people using it big enough to be significant and that will make sense of the current valuation.
Yoda, Luce says Tesla's bottom line doesn't support the fundamental, the intrinsic, the market cap today. Luce has earlier pointed out to the high PE ratio, and he doesn't think the FSD unsupervised is going to come anytime soon. And even if it does, the adoption rate is going to take some time to increase. What do you say to Luce?
Yeah, I guess two things. Just from a adoption rate optimization perspective, know that Tesla has full pricing power. It could bundle FSD with 0% APR, you know, and a variety of other tactics, bundling FSD with, you know, free paint upgrade, for example, and other things. But the adoption really is a function of kind of the progression and the, you know, the quality, the reliability, the safety of the technology itself. And that is accelerating, that is improving. So there will be a point whereby it would literally be less safe to drive without FSD when it reaches that point. And you'll see this tipping point where the adoption in combination of those tactics will basically make FSD mainstream within the Tesla ownership, space. So I think right now we're seeing, let's say, a lower percentage of adoption because of those factors, whether it's the cost or the technology not being at that.
Luce.
So Yoda, if you look at the last quarter report, you can see that the miles driven by FSD declined, like the tangency of the line declined since they gave the free trial. So the fact that the adoption is increasing rapidly or is exponentially increasing is not true.
Yeah, I think Luce, you know, the last couple of days, I lost paper loss of maybe a house or two, and it is very difficult to argue against taking profit like you have. But I think when it comes to FSD, I'd really encourage you to just, try that in the summer. I drive it every day, especially now that we're approaching the winter months. You know, if you add rain, you add, night, it is now a critical feature that I use and that I pay for. But everyone hits that threshold at a different, moment. But eventually everyone's gonna kind of get there. Imagine a phone that doesn't have always on, connectivity to the internet. That seems impossible now, but it wasn't the case, when smartphones first appeared. And I think something will happen with this type of technology.
Okay, I'm going to wrap this conversation up, and then we're going to move on to the next section with Yoda real quick. I have some questions, and with a comment from Nick Schiffman in YouTube live chat. Nick has a good comment. He says, imagine not needing to pay insurance once FSD unsupervised comes out. Then FSD will be essentially free. So Tesla can bundle FSD in a way that reduces your insurance costs. So why wouldn't anyone get it? So I think, Richard, that is a risk to you since you're out of the stock at this point. With the Trump administration in charge now of the White House as well as the Congress, I think some of these regulatory hurdles around Tesla insurance may also free up a little bit, but we'll see about that. Now, let me ask Yoda his thoughts in the last 10 minutes of the space. His thoughts about Elon's and Vivek's appointment to the Department of Government Efficiency. Yoda, Lucia mentioned earlier that this means Elon will spend even less time on Tesla. What do you think?
Well, yeah, he'll definitely spend less time, but I think the fear of him spending less time in absolute terms, in terms of minutes, hours in a week, is the way you and I think, because our productivity is mostly measured by brute force. Someone at his level, I think he's able to scale into so many companies because his highest value add is obviously not the physical, things that he brings to Tesla, right? It's his vision, direction, and guidance. And I think those things can be compressed, relatively, while he's taking up this new role with Doge. And I think really the day-to-day person will not be him. He will be setting direction and getting kind of status, reports. He'll probably operate it like the way he did with Twitter X, where he spends an initial time really fully immersed in the problems, but then he will have people reporting to him on a daily basis, much like he's running a sprint.
Lucia, on top of what Yoda said, even though Elon may spend less time on Tesla because of his another role in Doge now, he would also be maybe clearing some regulatory hurdles ahead of Tesla in the coming years around robotaxis, around Tesla insurance, around Optimus. So that actually increases Tesla's intrinsic value in the longer term. Now that you're out of the stock completely, what do you think about what I just said?
I think it's definitely true. It's definitely true that there are going to be advantages, but as I said, there are going to be huge disadvantages if any legislation against Tesla is passed, because now Elon Musk is it's in the government, which means that basically all this rally of 40% because Elon is in the government, it's basically worthless. You're gonna see that it's a huge risk and the rewards are way less.
Okay, just to be clear, technically Elon is not in the government. He is just setting up this Doge department that will be working with the government in conjunction. And I think what Yoda said is correct too. I think Vivek is probably going to be the point person, and Elon will probably just set some strategy and check in maybe a few hours a week or so. Luce?
If you say that Elon has limited influence on the government because it's outside of it, then you have also to agree that there are not going to be much help in the good legislations, because either
Indeed. I mean, I don't know if you know anything about the U.S. election system and the politics here, but the people who are most influential are outside of the government. Anyway, Yoda, Lucha said yesterday that if EV tax credits and IRA credits and ZEV credits go away or become diluted, which I think Trump administration will probably try to do, that the stock would drop materially, potentially as much as 30-40%. What do you think about that?
Well, just a quick point first. I think Doge objectively is not going to take more time than, let's say, when Elon picked up X or Twitter, and looked how that's turned out in terms of the way he's being able to manage through the acquisition of X, and now sort of leaving the day-to-day to the team while still being involved. Now, in terms of the EV credit, I think that actually helps to boost Q4 if people think that that will be removed come late January or Q1 next year. It's worth noting that really the last material risk in my eyes, is really Q4 earnings at this point, barring any kind of things that Elon runs into. But I think, from a business perspective, Q4 is the only lingering factor, because in Q1 and Q2 next year, we've got the new lower costing vehicles coming. When that's unveiled in potentially Q1, because production starts in Q2 of next year, I think you'll see Tesla hit a brand new level of price point.
Okay, let's discuss the lower price vehicles in tomorrow's space. So let's set the stage. For tomorrow's space, we're going to discuss the lower price vehicles, production timelines, margin expectations, price points, any other innovations that we expect. That can be the topic for tomorrow. Thank you, Yoda, for opening up that can of worms. Satwik, go ahead.
How likely is it that the Q4 earnings will be more than 500K?
More than what?
Likely is that the Q4 sales numbers are more than 500K?
Yeah, good question. And I can tell when somebody has been listening to this space for a while, as they word their questions in 10 words or fewer and start with the question work, as Satwik just did.
Yeah, I
Congratulations.
really love the spaces.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's really cool. Okay, let's go around the speaker board and make an estimate. Yes or no? Will Q4 deliveries be above 500,000? Yes or no? Yoda?
No.
Whoa, that's a bombshell. Ellie?
Yeah.
Alexander?
Yes.
Hustletown?
Yes.
Randy? Randy's sleeping. Luce?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow. So Luce actually has the yes side on that. Luce believes it's going to be more than 500,000. Yoda believes it's going to be less than 500,000. That's amazing. I mean, Luce, what I'm reading here is that you don't believe the market will look beyond the next couple of quarters, whereas Yoda is more focused on longer term and has a bit more faith in the market about looking beyond a couple of quarters. Luce agrees with that summary. Yoda, do you agree? Yoda?
Yeah, I just want Q4 to be nominal. Luce, trust me, I want to be very honest. The sell button in the last week looked like a fine Italian wine that is in front of me waiting to be uncorked. Um, I went as far as having a chat with Mrs. Yoda. And she was the one that says, if you sell, I'm leaving you. Um, I was very surprised actually. So yeah, but we went there.
That's amazing, Yoda. That's amazing. That's an amazing story. And thanks for sharing that with us. Well, Luce, it sounds like you're actually tapping into some of the bulls. Everybody at some point seems to have thought about selling their shares, and for one reason or another, we heard from a couple of people today that they decided against it. You pulled the trigger, and only time will show if that turns out to be a good trade or not. With that, thank you very much, everybody. It's been a great episode. I highly recommend listening from the beginning. And I will chat with you all tomorrow about the lower priced Tesla vehicles coming to market soon. Take care, enjoy your evenings, and talk to you tomorrow.